It started like any other night in Greenwood. The shops along Greenwood Avenue had closed for the evening, their owners heading home to their families. The streets, once alive with laughter and music, were now quiet under the Oklahoma sky. People settled into their homes, unaware that by sunrise, their world would be in flames. This is the story of the Tulsa Race Massacre, a tragedy erased from history books for generations, a story of ambition, violence, and resilience. I'm Mikael, and this is what I learned today. The Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, was unlike any black community in the United States. It was a place of prosperity known as Black Wall Street. Founded in the early 1900s by wealthy black entrepreneurs like O.W. Gurley, Greenwood thrived. Businesses lined the streets, barbershops, grocery stores, theaters, hotels. Black doctors, black lawyers, and black teachers built their lives here, serving a growing community of more than 10,000 African Americans. They had their own schools, churches, and even a hospital. It was a beacon of hope in an era of segregation, proving that black success was possible despite Jim Crow laws. But that success also made Greenwood a target. In 1921, Tulsa was a city divided. The wealth from the booming oil industry made it one of the most prosperous places in the country, but not everyone shared in that prosperity. White resentment towards black success simmered just beneath the surface. The Ku Klux Klan was growing in influence. Lynchings were common in Oklahoma and across the South. Just months earlier, a white man named Roy Belton had been lynched outside a Tulsa courthouse while the police stood by. There was no doubt what could happen when a white mob wanted justice on their own terms. And then, on May 30th, 1921, an incident in an elevator lit the match. Dick Rowland was 19 years old, a black shoe shiner working downtown. The law prevented him from using white restrooms, so he took the elevator to the top floor of the Drexel building, where a restroom for black workers was available. The elevator was operated by Sarah Page, a young white woman. No one knows for sure what happened when the doors closed. Maybe Rowland tripped and grabbed her arm to steady himself, and maybe she screamed in surprise. What we do know is that moments later she ran out of the elevator and Rowland fled the scene. A clerk in the nearby shop saw the commotion and assumed the worst. He called the police, and by the next morning, Rowland was arrested. The morning edition of the Tulsa Tribune barely mentioned the incident. But when the afternoon paper hit the streets, everything changed. The headline read, "Nab Negro for attacking girl in elevator." Another article later removed from the archives reportedly encouraged lynching. Word spread quickly. By evening, a white mob gathered outside the courthouse demanding Rowland to be turned over. But the sheriff refused. The tension in the air was thick like a storm about to break. Inside Greenwood, black men were also preparing. They knew what happened to men like Roy Belton. They had seen what happened in the other cities when a black man was accused of harming a white woman. A group of about 25 black men, many of them veterans who had fought in World War I, grabbed their rifles and marched to the courthouse. One of them recalled later, we weren't going to let them lynch another black man, not this time. The sheriff told them to go home, assuring them that Rowland was safe. Reluctantly, they left. But the white mob outside the courthouse only grew. Some reports say there were 2,000 people. An hour later, 75 armed black men returned, determined to prevent a lynching. And then it happened. A white man stepped forward, demanding a black veteran hand over his gun. The man refused. They struggled. Pa! A shot rang out. For a moment, there was silence. And then, all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted. The black men retreated towards Greenwood, while the white mob armed themselves, raiding local stores for weapons. White rioters stormed through the streets, shooting every black person they saw. Homes were set on fire. The night sky turned red with flames. Survivors remember men driving through the streets with torches, setting homes and businesses ablaze. One woman recalled, "They set my neighbor's house on fire. When she ran outside, they shot her where she stood." Eyewitnesses reported airplanes circling above, dropping firebombs on Greenwood. The chaos continued into the morning. White mobs looted black businesses, breaking windows, stealing jewelry, setting everything ablaze. By dawn, more than 1,000 homes and businesses had been destroyed. The National Guard arrived, not to stop the white rioters, but to arrest the black residents. More than 6,000 black men, women, and children were rounded up and placed in internment camps. They were forced to carry identification cards proving they had white employers to be released. Meanwhile, bodies were collected and buried in mass graves. The official death toll was listed as 36, but survivors say it was much higher. Some estimate as many as 300 people were killed. But the worst crime? The silence that followed. No one was ever arrested for the massacre. Insurance companies refused to pay damages, citing riot clauses. The city of Tulsa did nothing to rebuild Greenwood. For decades, the massacre was erased from history. Survivors were threatened into silence. Schools didn't teach it. Newspapers didn't print it. It wasn't until the late 1990s that efforts to uncover the truth began. Investigations into mass graves continue to this day. And yet, despite it all, Greenwood rebuilt. Its people refused to be erased. Today, the story of Black Wall Street is finally being told. The survivors are being heard, and the fight for justice continues, because history only lives if we remember it. Guys, I thought I would do something a little special. This is a story of Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, as it was called. I hope you found this story interesting. I didn't know about this story until some time ago. Like I said, I wasn't taught these stories in my school growing up in the U.S. So please, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Thank you for listening. And this is what I learned today. Bye.